Okay, this is a continuation of exploring career pathways. And in your book, it talks about using career clusters. Okay, so here's an example of how you would use a career cluster because remember we have 16 of those. And I have another sheet here that says here are all 16 of the career clusters that we're going to be talking about. So spend a couple minutes looking at that. So you might have to pause the video here so you can read through these. Okay, so you should have paused the video here a second ago and you were looking through the 16 career clusters. Okay, so here's an example. We have cluster names here in this column. We have product or service in this column. We have sample study areas in this column. And we have sample occupations in this column. So the products or services, I'm going to explain that a little bit. Yesterday, or the last lesson, I talked about clusters are formed around the types of services and products provided by a place. So, for example, cluster name, arts and communication, which is number 1 on the career clusters list of 16. The products or services that you would be providing would be art, music, and literature. And then what would you possibly study? Like what types of things, either in high school or in college, would be communications. And then a sample job would be an editor. And it could be for a magazine, it could be for a website, it could be for a book, it could be for a newspaper. Okay, another one would be career cluster name, business and management. And then what types of products and services, accounting and management. And then sample study area would be business administration. And then the sample job would be an office manager. So health and medical services is the next career cluster name. The product or service would be medicine and nutrition. The sample study area would be nursing. And then the sample occupation would be nurse. Another one, an example career cluster name is human services. What are you providing? It's for the people and education. Sociology would be an area of study, and a sample occupation would be a social worker. Cluster name, engineering and industrial systems. Manufactured goods is the product or service. Manufacturing or engineering is the study area for college or high school, or college and high school. And then a sample occupation is engineer. Okay, so hopefully you understand this chart a little bit. There's another one here, and you can look at that here in a minute. But usually, it has to go together. The cluster has to go together. That's how they break these down. Okay, the common clusters, and this kind of explains it a little bit here. Can you name 3 occupations that you'd expect to find in each cluster? Clusters are useful in exploring career choices. Eventually, however, you'll need to narrow down your study areas to gain the necessary skills to succeed in specific occupations. And someone asked me, like being a teacher, what did I have to study in school? Well, I studied science, I studied math, I studied history, I had a writing class, several writing classes, I had reading classes, I even had to take art classes, and I had to take music classes. So there's a variety of things I had to study. But once it started narrowing down to just the teaching part of it in the last part of my college, I was taking specific teaching classes, like how to manage classrooms, and things like that. Okay, so clusters are useful in exploring career choices. Okay, so I said there's all these jobs you've got to pick from. That's why they divide them up. Eventually, however, you'll need to narrow down the study areas to gain the necessary skills to succeed in specific occupations. The chart also shows sample study areas and specific occupations for each cluster. Career clusters are useful for identifying large groups of occupations that have no interest to you. For example, after observing an accountant all day, Andrew decided he wasn't interested in accounting. So going back to this list right here, So if I were to observe a teacher for a day, I might decide, well, this career cluster is not for me. So then I eliminate number 5. So now instead of choosing from 16 different career clusters, now I only have to choose from 15 because I've already eliminated that one. Maybe in our lessons from yesterday, we were talking about number 1, agriculture, food, and natural resources. So maybe I've looked through that career cluster, I've studied that career cluster, and I've decided there's nothing in that career cluster for me either. So now I'm down to 14 choices. So that's how you continue to narrow down your choices. Okay, the next paragraph says private companies, associations, and government agencies produce a wealth of information about career clusters and career opportunities. Your teacher, guidance counselors, and media specialists can help you gain access to the valuable resources. And I know if you specifically type in an occupation, like one of these occupations, like if I were to type in social worker videos into YouTube, I can usually find a sample of someone who is a social worker and they're talking about their job. And that might give you an idea about what that person does and if you'd even like that or not. Okay, the next section talks about connecting with people. This is pretty important as well. There's an old saying that people get jobs through the people they know. Many people credit someone else for helping them get a job. Some help by serving as personal references. Others help as encouraging people to explore career opportunities in a given area. They may be able to answer questions or put you in contact with someone else who can. Do you know people who hold interesting jobs? Make a list and request interviews from them. There are several reasons why personal connections are helpful. Word of mouth contacts are the best source of information about job openings in most communities. Employers want to know that others can verify a job applicant's skills, experience, and positive attitude before offering them a job. So get to know people that do the job that you want to do. So if I want to become an EMT, I may go over and ask if I can get an interview with an EMT or talk to the person that's in charge of EMTs and ask them about the job. And also, like I said, you can go on YouTube and you can find out more information as well. But if you can get someone that can recommend you for a job because they get to know you, that would be even better. Okay, in this section here, I'm going to have you take notes, but I will put up the notes at the end of this video. That way I can read through this and explain some of the stuff to you as I go, instead of you worrying about taking notes at the moment. So researching resources in print. And to me, that's like another part of exploring a career to determine whether or not you would like that type of job or not. So it says most schools and public libraries have specific sections to help you explore careers and plan for your future. Career information includes information about jobs, workers, employers, and educational opportunities. There are several categories of information that job seekers need to know to make the best choice. You are a job seeker at this point, and this is what you need to try to make the best choice. So these are all things that you need to think about. Educational requirements. So educational requirements range from short term on the job to as much as 10 years of college and a doctorate degree. Employers now require more post-high school education or training for job applicants. So you might just have to have training through your employer, or it might have to be like more than 10 years of college or less. Most college bachelor's degree is 4-year. Don't forget about the 4-year college, and we'll talk about that in another lesson coming up. Okay, earnings. Your earnings vary greatly among occupations and employers. Some jobs include regular pay increases based on the length of time a worker is employed. So you'll probably be making, well, you should be making more than someone who has worked there for 10 years. I mean, if you've worked there for 20 and someone else has worked at a company for 10 years doing the same job, the person who works for 20 years should be making more money. Wages may be earned on an hourly rate of pay or a fixed salary. So you might get paid so much an hour, or you might get, and then anything over your regular hours, you could get what they call overtime pay, which we'll talk about that in a different section as well. Okay, another word to think about is fringe benefits. And this includes vacation time, sick leave, healthcare insurance, and retirement programs. It's important to consider the fringe benefits offered with a job when comparing the income of two jobs. Sometimes it's better to select the lower paying job that provides better fringe benefits than a higher paying job. So if I was to become a nurse, a registered nurse, and I just finished college, okay, so I'm finished with that, and I was looking for a job, and Hospital A was in a bigger city, and I would be making $5,000 more starting out. Hospital B, I would be $5,000 less than Hospital A, but Hospital B has better fringe benefits, and it works out to be that I'm making $7,000 more at Hospital B because of the fringe benefits like vacation time, sick leave, health insurance, retirement programs. Plus, Hospital B might be in a lower cost of living area, so it's not going to cost me as much to either rent in that area or buy a house in that area. Okay, so definitely something else to think about as you're studying your careers, your future careers. Okay, the next page continues on with exploring a career, and this is basically the nature of work. So nature of work refers to the actual activities you do on the job. Nature of work includes the equipment used and supervision received. What work factors are important to you? This is something to think about. Would you prefer to work alone or as a part of a team? Okay, the next section is working conditions. These refer to the environment where you work. Important conditions include work schedules, the chances of job-related injury, and perhaps travel requirements. Do you prefer to work inside or outside? Are you willing to work nights, weekends, or holidays? Okay, and the last one for thinking about which career you might like, job outlook. Job outlook refers to the future opportunities in an occupation. Job opportunities are often created because of new jobs, the replacement of existing workers, or a shortage of skilled applicants for job openings. Although new jobs become available when new businesses are created, 2 out of every 3 jobs become available when workers quit or retire. Okay, so this is all talking about exploring your careers in a different way. And as promised, I'm putting up the notes for today. So you need to write this down on your notes, so you will need to pause the video because I'm going to stop the video at this point. So pause the video before it stops. And make sure you got these written down in your notes.